or you can listen to them on your platform streaming, on your podcast streaming platform of your choice. On the podcast streaming platform of your choice the next day. Hi there. Before I get into today's topic, which is Gabbie Hanna appearing on the Mom's Basement podcast with Keemstar and FaZe Banks, the same podcast we talked about last week with Trisha Paytas, I want to make a note on the topic of criticism. Gabbie Hanna receives criticism, a lot of it. I receive criticism for giving Gabbie Hanna criticism as if criticism is bad, but I'm receiving it. And one of the criticisms is that I can't take the criticism, but today I'm going to. In this episode of Mom's Basement, the Mom's Basement podcast, I still don't know how to actually say the name of the podcast for some reason. The Mom's Basement podcast, Mom's Basement. I don't care. Stop caring, Alicia. It doesn't matter. They don't care. You guys don't care, do you? Do you care? Gabbie said in this podcast that she wishes people would just come at her respectfully. And while I feel like I've been doing that for the past year and a half, I know at times I can get a little bit petty. I know that I have a bias. I don't hide my bias, at least as it's intensified over the past 6 months or whenever this most recent tirade started. And that bias is the subject for some of the criticism I receive. So what I want to do for this video is just that. Come at Gabbie Hanna respectfully as I can. And so I will be doing my best to withhold my biases. I will do my best to be as objective as possible. I will do my best to give Gabbie Hanna the benefit of the doubt where possible. I cannot promise you that this video will be in the favor of Gabbie Hanna. It won't. Let's just be real. It won't. But let's see if I can deliver my message respectfully. Now, I have a hypothesis about how this will go, how it will be received. I believe that should Gabbie Hanna ever watch this video or hear about it, and for sure her stans who make up half my audience when I talk about her and when I'm not talking about her, I believe that me speaking respectfully to Gabbie Hanna, or more so than usual, will actually anger her and her audience more. Because I think that's the reason I am so heavily targeted by them in the first place. Same reason that Rachel Oates was targeted by Gabbie and her fans. It's really only ever the people who are respectful and critical that are the ones that become these people's targets. So, regardless, let's give them what they ask for, see how it goes. And I know that I'm being cheeky with my tone, but I genuinely am going to try to take a different approach and a different tone with this critical video. So, this past week on August 25th, Mom's Basement released their episode featuring Gabbie Hanna. And I think it's worth noting, I'm not going to talk about all of these things. We talked about this last week, but so little of this podcast, in my opinion, was really interviewing Gabbie or talking about Gabbie and her life. It seemed like most of this podcast, or at least a large portion of it, was more of Keem whining and bitching about Ethan Klein. Can I say whining and bitching? I said that I was going to try to be really respectful to Gabbie Hanna. I didn't say anything about Keemstar. And there was more stuff about FaZe Banks and his experiences with Jake Paul and just stuff that's just not interesting. Not to us, not to this side of the internet, or at least not to me in this video. But they did start the interview by introducing Gabbie Hanna as a controversial figure. I think one of the most controversial figures on the internet. And Gabbie seems to not like this and expresses that and kind of says so in a way that she doesn't really quite understand why she's called that so much. And I might sound like a broken record when I point out some things, but I just want to make sure that I'm being very matter of fact if I am going to disagree with a point. And I may have to revisit certain points to address different claims that Gabbie Hanna has made. So in terms of her being a controversial figure, and we're going to have to put a pin in this because I know it'll come up later. I need Gabbie. No. Let's be nice. Gabbie. I just want to remind Gabbie that her name being in the media this year was largely due to an episode. Is that what we want to call it? I don't want to call it a breakdown. It had a lot to do with Gabbie Hanna's decision this year to troll the internet by being mean, by being the villain, by being hurtful to people, by targeting people, whether she feels justified or not. I'm not addressing that. But she did go online to say things that are not okay to say. Again, put a pin in this because we'll talk about it later. She did go online and say things in a tone that people don't use when talking about her generally. We saw this spring Rachel Oates being targeted by Gabbie Hanna, whether justified or not. I'm not addressing that. But Rachel was called several really horrible names.
You mean Miss 4K views on your fucking makeup tutorial? Miss 4K views on your commentary piece a week ago? Yeah, I just went and checked. I'm talking about you for attention. You talk about me, you get millions. I talk about you, I get still millions, but not because of you. You're a fucking monster. You're a bitch.
As well as her intelligence questioned.
She's not a fucking artist. I don't care about her fucking opinion because she has no accomplishments in art or has proven to me that she's actually intellectual enough to understand art. I accept my criticism from talented, smart people, not abusive, toxic, exploitative bullies on YouTube.
Rachel was targeted by Gabbie's fans, particularly them mass flagging her Instagram account to the point that it was taken down. She posted several Instagram lives where she talked about other people, one in particular being Oscar Wilde.
Isn't gonna work on him though. Why not? He's just like a fake pussy ass bitch. You know what's just like super fucking weird to me though is that so many people are so quick to share screenshots. Like, I had a conversation with this person, if you can call it that, and then he blocked me and shared the screenshot. That's so fucking weird, regardless of the contents of the situation. He liked a tweet, I replied to it, he DM'd me, then blocked me, and then shared the screenshots. But I'm the fucking, like, weird manipulative one. Okay!
We saw several tweets from him, kind of just begging for it all to come to an end. It meaning Gabbie Hanna targeting him, as well as her fans going after him. He talked about his sobriety being in jeopardy. He talked about hiding in his closet with his dog shaking because his anxiety was that bad. We saw Trisha Paytas upload a video begging Gabbie Hanna to stop talking about them, crying. And in general, we saw that Gabbie did an interview with BuzzFeed where she very openly talked about playing this villain character. And she was honest with us about what she was doing on Instagram Lives, on YouTube, and pretty heavily on TikTok. She was trying to go viral. She was, like I said, playing the villain. There were at times where she was, quote unquote, playing crazy. That's me quoting because there were just a lot of theatrics. I'm not going to comment on how offensive those behaviors might have been because that's not what this video is about. But there was a lot of just odd behavior displayed by Gabbie Hanna. And Gabbie also made it clear to us that this behavior was entirely intentional and that there was nothing wrong. She wanted to go viral. She wanted to trend. She wanted to say, fuck it, and play the villain. So to be confused as to why you would be branded a controversial figure confuses me. That said, this group of people started talking about art, particularly Gabbie Hanna's art, the art she's been making lately, the music she's been putting out or sharing with Keemstar, the paintings she's been creating. She brought up a point that she heard somewhere where somebody posed the question, are your actions setting you up for where you want to be in life, or are they an escape from the now, more or less?
I read this thing recently that was like, are your actions right now like setting you up for the future you want, or just an escape from the life you're trying to leave?
Yeah.
And I've just been trying to focus more so on just like the art and the music and stuff I actually care about, as opposed to trying to escape the fucking scandals that I'm always in.
And it sounded like Gabbie wants to just create a life where she can just quietly live and create art, which is something we'll likely revisit. But on that front, I think that that's a fantastic idea. I love it. Prior to this podcast, for a few weeks here, probably since the last docuseries episode that Gabbie's put out, things have been pretty quiet on the Gabbie front. And I hope that in that time she's been creating art and enjoying some peace. She mentions peace a lot in this podcast episode, that she wants peace. So with her drama dying down online, I'm really hoping that she's getting a taste of that peace and that freedom to just create art, and that dream is realized for her very soon. But speaking of peace, Gabbie touches on the topic of drama. She says that she's always in it, but she just wants to be left alone. She doesn't want the attention. She wants peace.
Dude, I fucking hate having drama. Here's my thing with my drama is I'm always in it, which is so fucking annoying. And I never want to be a part of it, but people won't leave me the fuck alone.
I feel you.
And I try so hard not to engage, but then it's just like, oh shit. I remember my manager came over, and this is after like maybe a year and a half of me just ignoring everything. And I'm like trying to sit there all the time, like, no, I don't fucking respond to petty drama. And he was like, I think it's time. It was right after the Bianca situation.
Yeah.
And he was like, I think it's past the point of ignoring it. I think you have to say something. But now it's like, now I'm forever tied to people that I want nothing to fucking do with.
I need
just want
enemies.
peace. I don't want fucking attention. I want peace. Like,
And I think it's really important that somebody explain to Gabbie Hanna truly why she is involved in drama. And I certainly can't do that comprehensively. That would be a docuseries in and of itself. One that I'm not sure people really want from me at this point. On the surface, one might just say to Gabbie that you're involved in drama because you keep talking about it.
I'm drama seeking, right? I started drama. I just want attention. Ah! I do want attention. Please. Yeah, I'm a fucking drama queen. I love the drama.
And I know that Gabbie says that when she talks about drama, she's just responding to whatever is already going on.
So if you see standing up for yourself when you're constantly being exploited by people, tabloids, as drama, then yes, I'm a dramatic person. I don't feel embarrassed or like ashamed about that. And I'm going to continue to do that. And when I say that, I mean respond. I want to remind everybody that I'm responding to people who have said things about me publicly, false things, defamatory things, hurtful and slanderous things, and holding them accountable to their own actions as a way to highlight their hypocrisy and the fact that they don't actually care. They just want to make money. Anyway, I'm going to go get a facial. Have a nice day.
Particularly things that are going on that make her feel slighted. What I don't think Gabbie is realizing is that almost everyone involved in drama, except for people like Keemstar, you know, who like actually like it and like to perpetuate it. And really, Gabbie, what you were doing with these TikToks and the trolling and the villainous behavior and all that. But let's kind of put that aside and pretend that that didn't happen. Everybody involved in drama just feels like they are responding to behaviors that have made them feel slighted. I mean, that's really the nature of arguments or fights or competition or whatever you want to call this. And where it started is really kind of a chicken and egg situation. And that's made so evident by Gabbie Hanna and Jessie Smiles kind of going back through their history to explain like why this situation caused this situation, and then that situation was caused by another situation, and then this, that, and the other happened. So I hate to sound condescending, but I would venture to say that most drama, I don't know, not necessarily in the influencer world, but just in I think in life, I think that things oftentimes build, tension builds, and then events happen. And so it's really hard to tell where things came from. So I can believe you and I can give you the benefit of the doubt and I can trust you when you say you feel that you're just responding. I'm going to go back and forth with sounding like I'm talking about Gabbie Hanna to sounding like I'm talking to Gabbie Hanna. I think it's just an indicator of how invested I am in what I'm saying. But what was I even saying? I believe Gabbie when she says she is just responding to what's out there. And I don't blame Gabbie for wanting to respond to what's out there, especially being as heavily disliked of a figure as she is. I would want to, and I think a lot of us would want to respond. The problem that I perceive is that it seems that Gabbie believes that she is different from everyone else, that everyone else has different motives than she does, where she is just defending herself or responding to things that need to be responded to. I don't think she realizes that other people are just doing something very similar. Yes, people are bringing up things that weren't being talked about in order to illustrate a point, but so are you when you bring up different people in these docuseries episodes when nobody was talking about it in the first place. Alex James being a great example. Nobody was really talking about Alex James in relation to all this drama, but Gabbie brought him up.
And he's like hurt me before, dude. For real.
So I'm not saying that it's inherently wrong for Gabbie to bring up people like Alex James or the Escape the Night drama, put a pin in that too. I'm just saying that when other people do it, it's just important to keep in mind that we all do it. Does that make sense? I hope so. Jeez Louise. By the way, I never really know if these videos are going to end up making any sense. When I finish recording, Jake will ask me how it went, and I'll just be like, I don't know. I guess we'll see in editing. So I really hope that this makes sense. If it is so far, please give it a thumbs up. So to say that you don't want to be involved in drama, I mean, you might not want to be, but there's a difference between not wanting to be involved in drama and not actually engaging in drama. And we know, and I think Gabbie knows that Gabbie has been engaging in it, but has also been perpetuating it, initiating it even at times. Again, she may feel like she's just responding to things, but she is talking about these things and she is bringing up new issues or new to the conversation issues. Sure, you can take 5-6 months to respond to something that Rachel Oates did last year that upset you. But if that starts a shitstorm and people start responding to you responding and people are talking about it, then you can't feign surprise or feel like you are being victimized because people are talking about it. I mean, what would that say if you did what you did and nobody talked about it? Then I think that would mean that you are truly irrelevant, which is another pin that we need to put in it. Because later in this podcast episode, Gabbie does touch on people who have called her irrelevant. And spoiler, I'm just going to say outright, Gabbie Hanna is not. Gabbie Hanna has not been irrelevant since she started on the platform, save for maybe a couple of quieter moments here and there. But irrelevant, her career may be waning, but she's not at the point of irrelevancy yet. So of course, people are going to talk about the things that she says that are provocative. And if she continues to behave in ways that are provocative, people are going to get upset. And if people are going to get upset, they're going to make videos and they're going to make criticisms of you. And so this is all kind of part of the drama that Gabbie Hanna doesn't want to be involved in, but she has to recognize, with the utmost respect, you have to recognize the role that you're playing in the drama that you claim you don't want to be a part of. Right? that's true of all of us. It's true of everyone. Like, I promise you guys, I really am trying my best. I really am trying my best to be as fair as I can, but this is not going to go in Gabbie Hanna's favor, though I am going to go as easy on her as possible. They do mention pretty briefly that kind of while everyone was against Gabbie Hanna, Keemstar was like the only one that actually checked in on her to make sure she was doing okay, which sparked this whole conversation about how Keemstar is really such a great guy.
Whenever I was like going through some shit online, like of all the internet creators, all my friends, like my quote unquote friends, like they're unfollowing me, they're taking jabs on Twitter, and Keemstar of all people is the person who's reaching out being like, are you okay? I just want to check in on you. Like, don't do anything crazy. Like, if you need anything, I'm here. Call me whenever.
And it's so weird that it's him that's doing that, because you just wouldn't on paper.
Because he's real.
I just don't like how you guys say this publicly, because like I've worked so hard to have this reputation as being this like evil villain, and you can't like really tell people about my private life like this.
No, I think people should know, because that's the thing. Everyone's like, oh, we want genuine, we want authentic. And it's like, no, you want somebody who's going to sit there and smile in your face and manipulate and be like, I'm such a good person.
And here's the thing. He might be behind the entire persona that he puts forward on the internet. He might be a really great guy. I question whether or not you can be that great while being that harmful with your platform. But let's just pretend that his one critical flaw is that he doesn't realize this persona is hurtful. Let's pretend that he's a good guy. If that's the case, great that Gabbie Hanna has somebody like that. But I doubt that that's the case. And this video is not about giving Keem every benefit of the doubt. So it makes me worry and wonder, because of the people that are aligning themselves with Gabbie Hanna. They are not people generally in the public's favor. They are themselves very controversial people with very offensive and ignorant takes. And so it makes me wonder if these people, or specifically Keemstar, are genuinely interested in how Gabbie's doing, genuinely concerned for her well-being, or are they looking for somebody else to recruit? Are they looking for another drama to get involved in? Are they looking for another opportunity to go against the grain and ruffle the feathers of the public? I don't know, but it's definitely something that I think about when people like Keemstar reach out to people like Gabbie Hanna, and let's be real, like Trisha Paytas at the same time, as soon as Trisha Paytas was back out of the public's favor. You know, I'm not usually one to question people's motives, but there's something fishy going on there, I think. There were a couple of moments where the guys would say something that, you know, just kind of by the nature of having this friendly conversation, Gabbie kind of had to agree with, or like, you know, go along with.
Well, that's how you can always gauge who your actual friends are. Your friends are people who will talk shit to your face, call you out on your shit. But when you're not there, behind your back, they speak highly of you and champion you and all that shit.
Which is a very simplified definition of what a friend is, but one that I can get behind. But unless Gabbie Hanna's definition of friendship has changed, this is not something that she can agree with or should agree with, but didn't voice any disagreement. She told Trisha Paytas on her own podcast, slightly paraphrasing here. And when it comes to paraphrasing, we have a lot of pins, lots of pins. Gabbie Hanna told Trisha Paytas something along the lines of, your friends should make you feel like the coolest person on earth at all times.
If your friends don't make you feel like the coolest fucking person on earth at all times, they're not your friends.
Yeah.
Which I disagreed with, which I think a lot of people disagreed with. There's no room for growth. There's no room for growth if your friends are only hyping you up all the time. And that is why I agree with FaZe's point, and I hope that this friendship with Keemstar and or FaZe Banks, perhaps that definition of friendship can change a little bit for Gabbie Hanna. There was one thing that I caught, and I'd like to look into this, so in editing, I'm sure I'll go and find some screenshots here and there, but there seemed to be what I thought was a bit of a slip. Gabbie Hanna talks about wanting to go on the H3 podcast, or, you know, whatever Frenemies was to become. Going back to something we talked about, I guess, last week, whether it be in my last video or in a BAP, with the whole situation around Ethan and Trisha going on the Mom's Basement podcast, Ethan revealed to the public that Gabbie had reached out to Ethan, in his words, immediately after Frenemies ended, to come on the podcast and like give her quote unquote side of things, I guess. And Gabbie Hanna refuted that and said that she did not reach out to him immediately after the podcast ended. It was actually, I think what she said, like after he made a joke about biggest mental breakdown or something like that. But she made it sound like it was not hand in hand with the ending of the Frenemies podcast. And here are the tweets. Ethan says, Gabbie Hanna messaged me immediately after Frenemies broke up, trying to get on the podcast. I knew it would be an interesting show with lots of views to be had, but I didn't even respond to her, and still haven't. Some things you just don't do. I would never do that to Trisha. To which Gabbie responds, I didn't message immediately after Frenemies broke up. I messaged immediately after I put out the evidence of the lies you and Trisha spread on Frenemies. Still would like the opportunity to defend myself on the platform I was harassed and slandered on. Please. But here on this podcast with Keem and FaZe Banks, Gabbie says that she did at that point ask Ethan if she could come on the podcast.
But then after Trisha went on to fucking say he was like sexually harassing her and basically doing to him what she'd been doing to me for 2 years, he still went on to like talk shit about me online. Like I asked him, hey, you see what it is now. Let me come defend myself on the same platform that you sent millions of people.
She refers to what he did to me, he meaning Ethan. And she also talks about how much Trisha talked about her on the Frenemies podcast, which honestly, realistically, was not that much. I got the impression that Trisha Paytas was kind of like embarrassed to speak of Gabbie Hanna too much. Like Gabbie Hanna is beneath Trisha. Correct me if you got a different impression. Maybe leave a comment, let me know if you got the same impression. I know that there was a point where it just seemed like the gloves were off and they were going to talk about Gabbie. So there was definitely at least one episode where Trisha kind of just like laid it all out, but otherwise it seemed like Trisha did not want to go there. Regardless, Ethan did make a joke about what they called the Steamies. It was something they did on the Frenemies podcast towards the end of the year last year. It's kind of a parody of and a nod to the Streamies. It's kind of just a satirical form of an awards show for YouTubers. And Ethan does make a joke about perhaps presenting Gabbie Hanna with the award for best mental breakdown or biggest mental breakdown or something like that. So in this video, I am going to give Gabbie the benefit of the doubt, or grace, or maybe it's just what's right, and say that Ethan should not have made that joke. I said in, I think, my last video that I haven't really heard anybody express concern over that. But let's go ahead and agree here and right now that joke was distasteful, that we shouldn't make jokes of mental breakdowns, whether somebody's having one or not. And I'm not saying that Gabbie didn't have one when maybe she says she did. I'm just saying it's probably not jokes that we should make. Now, did Gabbie have a mental breakdown this year?
What he did to you was horrible.
I know, dude. And like,
so what exactly was it? Because all I know about your guys' thing was award for the biggest meltdown or
dude,
something.
that fucking sucked. Just because, like, as much as you pretend to give a fuck about mental health, like, I'm extremely mentally ill. I'm pretty open about it. So like to joke around and be like, oh, let's give her, maybe she'll come accept the award. Like, fuck you, dude.
We've talked about this a lot on my channel. And last year, Gabbie went through a whole thing and then later called it a mental breakdown. This year, Gabbie started to display a lot of concerning behavior, again, being mean to people, again, acting erratic on camera, again, making strange posts, again. And hopefully I'm not upsetting anybody by saying this, because this is stuff that Gabbie has admitted to. It was intentional. And because of this concerning behavior, coupled with what happened last year and that being called a mental breakdown, a lot of people started referring to Gabbie's more recent behavior as a mental breakdown. And Gabbie has taken issue with that. She has said a few times she's not going through anything.
Here's the thing. If I was going crazy, it's kind of fucked up how people are treating me, right? If I actually was having a mental breakdown.
I'm extremely mentally ill.
She's fine.
You're a manipulative bitch and I'm done dealing with it. Now, I was waiting for you to slow down so I could respond to everything at once when I was mentally strong. That doesn't mean I am having a breakdown. That actually means I'm finally healthy. You fucking sick, twisted bitch.
I'm extremely mentally ill.
She's healthy.
I think it's funny. I also am just kind of trying to highlight the fact that if a woman defends herself in any way against stuff that she should be defending herself against, then she's like crazy and everyone's saying I'm having a breakdown and shit like that. Dude, I'm chilling. I was just playing with makeup. I'm about to edit. Actually, I haven't eaten yet today. I'm going to eat and then I'm going to edit. And then I'm going to get high and I'm probably going to take a bath. So yeah, thanks for watching. Enjoy the show and stay tuned, because this is going to be the best season of the Gabbie show yet.
I'm extremely mentally ill.
And in fact,
You like to say that women are having a mental breakdown and blame any type of expression of emotions or defending themselves as being mentally incompetent and clearly going through something. I'm actually not going through something. I'm actually finally not going through something. I actually feel really good and strong and powerful, and really harnessed my sense of self and self-esteem. I'm just standing up for myself.
I'm extremely mentally ill.
it's misogynistic of anybody to refer to this as any sort of problem that she's going through, because historically, when women have expressed themselves, they've been branded as, going through something. We all know, the history of certain words like hysteria, and just in general, the misogyny around our society's attitudes towards women who are emotional or expressing themselves, as Gabbie has said. I would argue that the behavior that Gabbie has been displaying is not necessarily just normal expression of one's emotions, but I am no professional. And again, don't want to upset any of my viewers who are here to listen to me give her the benefit of the doubt, but this is something Gabbie has confirmed for us. She was trolling. She was turning on this persona to concern people, to get the attention, to be trending, to flip the script. It's not a mental breakdown. She's fine. There's nothing wrong with her. She's healthy. That's what she said. I'm finally healthy and standing up for myself.
I'm extremely mentally ill.
So why does she then say that this joke that Ethan made was so extra distasteful because she is so mentally ill, that she's dealing with so much mentally? That's something that I am just going to pose as a question to the fans, Gabbie fans. Maybe you know better than me. How do we as the audience differentiate between a mental breakdown, severe mental illness, signs that something is not okay, from trolling and just standing up for oneself because that person is feeling healthy? How do we distinguish that when it comes to Gabbie Hanna? I would really like to know, because with all due respect, I don't think it's fair, at the very least, to go on TikTok and tell people that they're being essentially anti-feminist for showing any concern for Gabbie's mental well-being while she is admittedly trolling all of us. It's something that I don't understand, and I would love for you to explain it for me. I'm not going to try to explain it because I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. So I'm just hanging out. I'm suspended in doubt. So we'll see how that goes. And I just spilled water on myself. So if you notice that, then I called it before you did. In regards to Ethan and Gabbie's interactions with him, she kind of posed the question like,
and you're not going to let me come fucking say my piece? You're not going to let me say my side?
And this is something that she and I briefly spoke about, and I go back and forth on this because she did present the notion that people, namely T channels and commentary channels, they will talk about a situation without reaching out to all parties to get a statement. And she even made the comparison to news reporters. She's like, oh, they're all news reporters or want to be news reporters, which I do not think that T channels are, and I certainly don't think that commentary channels are. Just want to make that clear. But just entertaining this notion that people should be allowed to speak their side, I understand where she's coming from, and I think perhaps when it comes to really big publications, that makes sense considering your reach. But a couple of things. Every single person who wants to give their opinion on a situation cannot reach out to all the parties of the people they have opinions on to get a statement before informing their audience about that opinion. When Gabbie said this to me, I had 25K subscribers on YouTube. Do you know how many channels there are out there with 25K subscribers or less? A lot. How many that are giving commentary on Gabbie? Okay, a lot still. Is it realistic to think that these people are going to respond to our questions? I don't think so, but giving Gabbie the benefit of the doubt, say that I had reached out to her to get her opinion on anything before I criticized her, even at 25K, 15K, 10K. I did give Gabbie a chance to tell me her side, and it didn't go well. And that's unfortunate. And I'm not going to be mean about it. I am just going to say, Gabbie Hanna fans, I'm taking a moment to be painstakingly honest with you. Those 2 or 3 days that Gabbie Hanna and I spoke were not in response to Gabbie Hanna being concerned about me. That started with the conversation about me having a lack of concern for Gabbie because I hadn't reached out to Gabbie for a statement on these stories. It was also so that Gabbie could talk to me about her high school bullies. Why? I don't know. But that is what those interactions were predicated on. That is what we initially talked about. And I am not going to get into the specifics about it, which you guys already know. You don't want to hear me point fingers at Gabbie Hanna or see me point fingers at Gabbie Hanna. I will just say that interaction did not go well. I did not enjoy it, and it went so badly that I decided that I would never want to do that again. So I'm trying to find ways to say this that sounds objective or not biased, but if I just have to say it this way. If you make a name for yourself as somebody who is going to fly off the handle anytime somebody disagrees with you, those people are not going to want to reach out to you and hear out your side. I don't know how the conversations went between Gabbie and the other drama channels and T channels and commentary channels that she spoke to when she has tried to give her side, but certain people like iNabber have spoken out about their experiences in, hearing out Gabbie or giving her the benefit of the doubt. And it's pretty unanimous. Even Creepshow Art, who was very much on Gabbie's side, has had a lot of really negative things to say about Gabbie and her perception of right and wrong and how she's right and has been wronged. So yeah, I cannot blame Gabbie, with all due respect. I cannot blame somebody like Ethan Klein for not wanting to give you the benefit of the doubt and bring you on and hear out your side and all the stuff that you think that he should do with his show, which is not your place. But also Ethan's whole point was that he did not want to do this thing that was disrespectful to his former best friend and somebody who's now family, which is Trisha. And then on top of that, to say that they owe this to you because Trisha talked about you on the podcast. Huh? Aren't you guys talking about Ethan Klein like half of this podcast without reaching out to Ethan for his statement? Aren't you going on your channel, Gabbie, and making videos about people without asking them to give their statement first? No, you have these interactions. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying that people come forward and they talk about their experiences, sometimes involving other people, and they don't need to consult these people anytime they're going to talk about them on the internet. And Gabbie Hanna should know that of all people because she's been doing it so much lately. So no, there was nothing wrong with Trisha and Ethan talking about Gabbie on the Frenemies podcast. There wasn't. I think she tried to talk a little bit about kind of like the exposure that podcast got, but Gabbie herself gets a lot of views right now too. Gabbie herself can respond to a situation and that message will get out. What is an example of a lack of balance there is when Gabbie, with 6.18 subscribers on YouTube, yes, it was much higher last year than it is now. Gabbie going on her channel, one of her channels, to read my text messages.
Me and shared the screenshot. That's so fucking weird, regardless of the contents of the situation.
And infuse her tone, her context, and things that were untrue. She says she has faulty memory, so let's chalk it up to that. But she did not ask me if she could do so, and she did it, and it sent a hate mob my way. You guys know that. I'm not going to go on about it, but there's an example. Like I said, I had 25K at that time. She had over 6 million at that time. And there's no mention of that, and she's never addressed that with me. She's never addressed that with her audience either. So when you get a very similar reach as these people, but you're doing the thing to very small channels that you say they're doing to, it's just all, it doesn't add up. And in this portion, she says again that she just wants to be left alone. And I think that's totally fair. I do believe to an extent that Gabbie wants to be left alone. I don't think that she is taking the precautions necessary or just behaving in a way that will allow for her to be left alone. Right? Let's revisit the point that Gabbie makes a lot. I'm just responding to things. I'm responding. But keep in mind, every time you respond and you bring up points, you're giving other people something to respond to. So you can't be left alone so long as you're putting out things for other people to respond to. One example being, and I know that we've already used him as an example, but one example being claiming that Alex James physically hurt you. If Alex isn't going to proactively address that himself, the audience, your audience, his audience, the audience at large, is going to press him to respond to that. So if you truly want to be left alone, you truly need to disengage with the drama. I have mixed feelings about how Gabbie talked to FaZe Banks about his own mental health struggles. This was one of those moments where I liked FaZe Banks and I liked the message he was putting out. He talked about how he had a lack of understanding of mental health matters, and he didn't even understand the concept of anxiety until it was something that he experienced so intensely to the point that he had to be 5150 because he was having thoughts of wanting to unalive. I'm really glad that they were able to bring that conversation to their audience. And while I wouldn't be so forward as asking the types of questions that Gabbie did, I would think like you might want to ask people's permission before you say things like, did you try to unalive yourself? Things like that. But if FaZe wasn't bothered by it, then it doesn't matter. Okay. So let's give Gabbie the benefit of the doubt and say that FaZe was not at all bothered by Gabbie's forwardness with asking these questions. FaZe at one point said, yes, I was 5150'd.
Whenever anybody would try, when I was younger, whenever anybody would try to explain anxiety to me, I just didn't understand.
Same.
I just could not wrap my head around it. It's like, what? Like, you're sad, you're nervous. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, whatever. But like that sinking, like anxious feeling. I only had ever experienced true anxiety after all that shit that happened with me.
Yeah.
And going into the hospital and all that shit. And like,
You went to the hospital?
I did.
Like mental hospital?
I got 5150 like
When?
6 years ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I lost my mind a little bit.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
You found it.
It's fine. Yeah.
I lost my mind, or I lost my mind a little, or something like that. And Gabbie's response was, that's okay. And legitimately, very, very legitimately, that made that made me happy on another level that Gabbie responded that way. And it seems like such a small thing, but it's just kind of the way in which we can validate somebody's really intense mental health struggles. We can validate them without making it seem like it's some huge deal, which can scare people into not wanting to talk about them. So Gabbie kind of taking this not flippant, but casual tone with FaZe Banks saying like, you know, like, it's okay. Like, that happens to a lot of us. And it does happen to a lot of us. It's really more a matter of how we talk about it. That's so taboo and so scarce. So, truly, A+ to Gabbie for her response to FaZe Banks saying he quote unquote lost his mind. There's more about how Gabbie doesn't care about YouTube or drama. She just wants to live.
Dude, I don't care about YouTube. Like, I'm not trying to be a YouTuber. I don't care about YouTube drama. I'm just trying to like do my artist shit, and nobody will just let me like live.
And again, I'm just going to drive home the point. Then you've got to do that, Gabbie. I can only make speculations based on what we know. And because Gabbie has talked about her income, because we know that she needs an audience in order to actually have her music streamed and her books bought, it kind of ties her to YouTube, or at least social media, to include TikTok. So I believe that she might hate YouTube and the drama, but I also wonder if she kind of needs it, if she needs to lean on it in order to maintain her income, or some sort of income that will allow her, you know, to pay her mortgage, to make those music videos, to live her life. You know, if she were to disengage entirely from the drama, from YouTube and all of that, I genuinely don't know how Gabbie Hanna would subsist. So while I think she hates it, I don't know that I believe she doesn't care about it. So to say nobody will let me live, you yourself, again, you have to make the decision to disengage, and you have to give that time too. You can't expect that like, okay, on this date, I've decided not to talk about it anymore, and then expect people on that date to stop talking about you too. But if you stop feeding the monster will go away. You know, it really is that simple. And speaking of monster, this was totally unintentional. But then she talks about the monster meme and finally comes to admit that she did not sound good during the Genius interview where she blew the mic when singing during her interview. Gabbie became a meme because of this moment in a Genius interview where she blows the boom mic that she had been talking into during the interview, and because she did, Genius ended up splicing the audio with their camera audio, and so it created this weird shift that sounded very jarring for a lot of us.
What if I'm the monster that's been here all along?
But she finally admitted that she didn't sound good in the first place, and that was actually the reason for blowing the mic.
I don't think people know. Like, Genius fucked up and like had the mic levels fucked up.
But I also sounded like shit.
Oh, okay. All right.
Like, it was both, 100%. But the reason it sounded so strange is because they cut in between mics. But the reason they cut in between mics is because I overshot the note so much.
Oh.
So like, I sounded bad, but like they made it way worse.
So I'm glad that Gabbie can come around to accepting that she doesn't do everything perfectly. And that's okay. It's so okay to be like, I wasn't as good a singer as I am now, or I messed up this time. That was embarrassing.
But actually, speaking of Monster, I feel like that actually is a real answer that I probably wouldn't have said otherwise.
And so before I start to ramble, and in an effort to simplify my outros, please take a moment to like this video and also to double check that you are subscribed. I have recently found out that this phenomenon we hear about with YouTube unsubscribing people randomly, it has been affecting my channel. So please take a moment to make sure that you're subscribed to the channel with notifications. This will also allow you to stay abreast of any posts that I make on my community tab. So follow me there, as well as social media. I'm Hello Leash just about everywhere, but particularly on Instagram and Twitter. Also Hello Leash on Patreon. If you have enjoyed your interactions with the people in the live chat here, if you're watching this during the live premiere, the people are amazing. You can probably tell. I would encourage you to check out my Patreon, patreon.com/HelloLeash, to get to know me and these people better. But if you don't do that, but just follow me on social media, that will help you to stay engaged in the conversations, particularly the ones that we have weekly on basically a podcast, which is my weekly video live stream on YouTube, 6 p.m. on Tuesdays, where we talk about whatever topic we want to talk about that week, which is usually related to things that are going on in the YouTube sphere. So you can catch those live with us on Tuesdays or on the podcast streaming platform of your choice the next day. And at this point, I believe it is just you and me. You, the one person who's watching, who's not me. Thank you for coming to this video. Thank you for watching to this point. And I love you, dude. Thanks. Bye.